the upstairs of the Carnegie is really devoted towards, visual exhibitions, whereas the Ned definitely has visual, they have visual art on display regularly, but their primary, I see at least, is like the theater's their primary, and then they have visual art represented as well. Whereas like for us, maybe the visual side is our primary, and the theater is maybe a secondary for us.
Welcome back to another lesson of East Main 101. I am a facilitator, City of Jackson, Tennessee Communications Director Kenneth Cummings. For lesson 25, I'm joined with the director of Jackson's Carnegie Center for Arts and History, my friend, Aaron Hardin. Everybody's been my friend, but you're Aaron. I've known you the longest of everybody I've interviewed so far. It's good to have you on. I'm excited to talk to you about the Carnegie.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So as always, I start off with a bio. Aaron received his Master of Fine Arts from the Hartford Art School International Limited Residency Program in 2016. He previously served as the Associate Professor of Visual Communications at Union University. Aaron began his career as a photojournalist for the Jackson Sun in 2009, and he went on to work as an independent artist and teacher. His work has shown throughout the United States, including Atlanta, Georgia, New Orleans, Louisiana, New York, Santa Fe, New Mexico. Aaron's work has also been shown in galleries internationally, including Berlin, Germany, London, England, and Havana, Cuba. Aaron's accomplishments include Magnum Photography Fine Art Award in 2016, the Photo Lucidia Critical Mass Award in 2017, a Magenta Foundation Flash Forward Emerging Artist Award in 2016, and the Pew Research Grant from Union University in 2019. He published his first book, The 13th Spring, in 2021 with Fall Line Press and is a contributor to the New York Times. Aaron currently lives here in Jackson, Tennessee with his wife Alice and his two daughters Josephine and Phoebe. Aaron, again, thank you for coming on East Main 101, Lesson 25. Of course, we've known each other since 2010 when I got here. You were already at the Jackson Sun. You were my mentor. You drove me around in the little red car to Lexington High School for basketball. We've both come a long way, coming from the Jackson Sun, now working for the city that essentially hired us. So let's just talk about who is Aaron Hardin and why does Aaron Hardin do what he do as it pertains to photography and his role as the director of the Carnegie.
Yeah. I was really fortunate to grow up around a lot of music and in a space where music was really normal. But when I was growing up, like art and visual things were not common. When I went to school, elementary school, things like that, visual art, storytelling was not a thing I was exposed to. So it wasn't really until college that I was exposed to visual storytelling first through making films, videos, things like that, kind of documentary filmmaking. And then that kind of led me to, at the end of my tenure in undergrad, of discovering photography. And photography, it had such a profound impact on me as somebody who traditionally is not super outgoing and is somewhat of a high-functioning hermit. Photography, especially photojournalism, was a way for me to experience the world around me and to meet a lot of different types of people and experience a lot of other people's realities. And when you're talking about doing that in a community, you're talking about doing that in a city like Jackson, you literally get to know every square foot of a city and all the different people from different walks of life, from different experiences, some on their happiest days and some on their saddest days. Speaking of just being here, I remember photographing Mayor Conger's grandfather's funeral. I was there for that experience. So I feel like I, in a lot of ways from behind the scenes, have been a part of Jackson's, DNA in some tiny little ways as a storyteller. That journey takes you down a lot of paths. I love taking people on a journey with my art, but also by showing people. And so that led to a career in teaching and helping people understand how to tell stories about the world and understand the world a little better. So, you never know where your journey's going to go. I never thought that I would, when I was in high school, I never thought that I would be remotely interested in photography, but then I did. And then as a photojournalist, I never thought I'd be that interested in art. And then I went to grad school and studied art, when I turned 30, and all of those experiences, all opened the world up to me in a bigger way. And so this opportunity to be the director of the Carnegie is a way for me, I hope, to utilize those experiences in order to bring something to Jackson and to bring something to our community, and to also elevate those in our community. And so, it's strange. You can look back on your path and see how it got you where you are, but it's hard to look forward down the path and know where you're going. Right. And so, I've been at the Carnegie for 6 months now, and it's been a hard 6 months because there's always a lot of work to do, and being kind of in charge of a not just a 120-year-old building, but of staff, of like historical memorabilia, of events, of planning for making wonderful things happen here. It's a tremendous amount of work for just a few people, and sometimes it's just down to me to figure out how to make it happen. But also, what a special thing to have the opportunity to create a community-oriented museum for our city, for our neighbors.
And the Carnegie, it's such a beautiful museum. But going back to you as a photographer, I too am, you call a hermit. What was it?
A high-functioning
hermit. That's just a cool way of saying an introvert. I am the same way. Photography, I wanted to be an architect, but somebody was at a summer camp or a summer school, prep school in Exeter, New Hampshire. And there was a photography class, and a friend of mine was taking it, and they had their camera. I said, "Oh, let me check it out. Let me get a picture." I took a picture of the top of a building. They printed it out, and I was like, "This is cool. I want to do this." Yeah. It was a building, and from there, in 2007, summer of 2007, it's my journey from photography. Joined the newspaper, the high school newspaper, citywide high school newspaper in Memphis. Joined our yearbook club. Then got to college, joined a newspaper there, and then got, career in journalism. Who knew? I had no idea that was where my path would go.
From a picture of a building, right?
From a picture of a building, and it was printed in black and white. That's the other thing. Who knew that was what I loved that picture? And I was like, from architect, I had no idea what I was doing. They had us building some buildings out of cardboard, and I remember I got so frustrated one time. I was stabbing the X-Acto knife in the cardboard, and the X-Acto knife came out of the thing, and I slammed my hand into it, and I still have the scar, and I was like, I don't want to do this. Camera is so much easier. And how you say you learn every aspect of the city. Explain that when you say you've learned as a photographer how you learn the aspect of the city and the people in it. Explain what you mean by that.
Yeah. Man, I could talk for hours on just the necessity for us as community members to know and spend time with people that don't look like us, that weren't raised like us, and even using the word us, I don't like that terminology because, everybody grows up in the house you grow up in, right? With the parents or grandparents or whoever raised you, or, we all have these siblings that you have. It all shades how you see the world. And, I think it's really ironic that we live in a time where you can whip your phone out and you can Google any place in the world, any neighborhood, like you can look at any Google Maps, but there's a kind of a breakdown of a sense of neighbor, a sense of community. And I had no idea when I was 20 years old and I was running around town with a camera that all of that was going to have such a tremendous impact on me. But, being a photojournalist, you don't make phone calls to interview people. You're right there with them. Yes. You're in the thick of it, no matter what that is. And sometimes that's just a lot of fun. It's not a big deal. And sometimes it's scary. And the reality of what the Jackson Sun gave to me is that it gave me an opportunity to meet so many wonderful people that I never would have known any other way other than being a part of their lives, making pictures. And that just had a profound effect on how I think about people, I think about culture and society. And I think that that's something special that we have here, at least in my limited experience in Jackson. And I tell people, it's like, it's a big enough city that you can kind of do whatever you need to do. We got 2 Walmarts or whatever,
That was one of my first things when I moved here. It's like, there's a whole other city down south.
Yeah.
There's a South Jackson. I had no idea. 2 Walmarts. So, but yeah, I totally get that.
But also, like, you can walk into a coffee shop and see the mayor, or you can, you can have FaceTime with any person of any level of leadership in a town like this. And there's something special about that, like I think that we need more of that. And I think that's kind of why I think a lot about what do I want to make the Carnegie into and what I think it should be. We had our reopening on February 1st, and it was really neat to see this cross section of people that came in the building and were experiencing these things together. And that's what I want. I want everyone to feel welcome, and to see that no matter the times that we live in, no matter the rhetoric of things that we hear, the reality is we all have a lot more in common that we have they're different than each other. We have so much more in common. The things that we desire, the things that we need in our lives. We've got kids, we want our kids to have the best lives they can have, right? We want to have a safe home life, a peaceful home life. We want our, spouses to feel loved and cared for. And so much of, I think, it's funny how much we talk about differences that people have when in reality, we just need to remember that we're different people with different cultural realities, but we have a lot in common in what we really hope to get out of our time together while we're alive, Right. So maybe that's a little bit of a tangent, but I mean, there's just things like that I don't think I would have discovered if I hadn't have been walking around sweaty in shorts in the middle of the summer in my little red Volkswagen Rabbit with no air conditioning. Most of the cars I've owned, for some reason, haven't had air conditioning, like meeting and experiencing people's lives, and that just has an impact on how you think about the world,
And you've been here, well, I met you in 2010 and you started working at Jackson Sun in 2009. Mm-hmm. You mentioned being a part of Jackson's DNA. For 14 years that you've been here, I'm sure you've seen the change. I've seen the change. Yeah. I'm not from here. I've seen the change from 2010 to now. And to be a part of what you call Jackson's DNA, I was at the Jackson Sun from 2010 to 2019. I was there by myself for a while. Mm-hmm. And you can't miss a 6'3" black guy with dreadlocks carrying a camera around. So I met people. People got to know me. They knew who I was when I walked in the building. Oh, Kenny's here. We're going to get the best pictures. They looked for the pictures in the paper. And I'm grateful to be a part of that DNA in the city of Jackson. And your photos, I loved looking at them. I love being able to, sit right behind you or next to you, however you want to put it, in that little dark space in the Jackson Sun, our little cubbyhole area. But when you left, it was like, okay, can I handle this? But I knew I had a good teacher in you and all of those who came before me at the Jackson Sun. I was able to handle it. So for you, seeing the change and now working at the Carnegie, and we'll get into that, how does it make you feel to, again, be a part of that change?
I mean, it's both such a tremendous honor, but also a huge burden. I feel a weight there, and I think that was part of when I transitioned out of the Jackson Sun. At that time in my life and the age that I was at, there's a lot of, again, I always take my jobs really, seriously, because people, you have a responsibility to other people. And when I was 20 something years old, and I had done my time at the Jackson Sun, there was part of me that wasn't quite ready to carry the immense amount of burden that you carry when you are a news photographer, because you see really hard things, and I emotionally was not, and I don't know that I even am now, to be able to carry that kind of burden. I have a huge amount of respect for journalists and people that go into hard situations in order to try to help us understand the world we live in. So being someone that gets to tell different types of stories now, I still feel that weight, that the community is entrusting, whether they know it or not, me to kind of head the Carnegie. And, I'm a very sensitive person. I take criticism really, it's heavy whenever somebody criticizes me. But also, when else in my life do I have an opportunity to really shape a museum, and hopefully the way that the museum can exist for years to come, and really try to create a sustainable thing that brings wonderful things to our community. It's an immense honor that the city would entrust that to me. And I feel obligated to show up, and do the best job that I can do, no matter what.
So the building itself is over 100 years, about 120 years old.
Yeah.
Start off as a library, and now the city took it over, I think, in 1987, and it become a museum. Museum curating, directing versus being a photographer. First of all, did you know that back in your 20s, when you were walking around the shorts shooting football games on a Friday night in the rain, that one day you'd be a director of a museum in the city that you worked in? Did you know that?
No, not a chance. Not even on the radar.
So the building itself, when you walk in that building, or the first time, or now that you're the director, when you walked in that building for the first time, after you got this position, what was your first thought? What did you want to do? And then how did you see it happening? And also, how do you see the Carnegie in the future?
Yeah, man, that's a big question. Being that I've lived here for a little while now, and being that I was a photographer, I actually experienced the Carnegie in a couple of different phases of its life, because, the most recent iteration of the Carnegie was purely a music museum, like a historical music museum. And we still have that collection, like on view historical music collection. And we were kind of the caretakers of a lot of those artifacts that you could only see there. But before that, it was like a children's museum. Before that, it was a venue where you could have weddings. So many people come to me and like, oh yeah, my cousin got married there. I mean, I photographed weddings in the Carnegie and different stages of its life. And so, I'm pretty familiar with the architecture. And that's one thing that I think is really so very special, that the Carnegie is an original Andrew Carnegie library that was funded. Andrew Carnegie, those libraries that he funded in the early 1900s most of them have really interesting architecture for where they're placed, and were meant to serve as like libraries for areas that didn't have libraries. And so I think the architecture of the building is really fascinating. I know this sounds weird, but the floors, I think, are one of the most captivating things. Yeah. There's a book with like flames all around it in the entryway. There's just a lot of really beautiful details that people made by hand. Mm-hmm. This is 1901. I mean, people handmade every little bit and bob that exists, that still exists. Mm-hmm. It's still there.
Still standing.
Which is incredible, And so going into a place like that, I mean, to me, it's funny that you were studying architecture, because I kind of feel like maybe some version of me in the multiverse maybe should have become an architect, because I think it's fascinating. The space that you make has a big impact on how you feel about the world that you live in. And so it's a beautiful building. Now, being that it was a library, it is laid out and formatted in a very specific and unique way. And so that means utilizing that space you have to be really creative in thinking about how can I be efficient with this floor plan. And that's one of the big goals that I had. And when we were shut down in January, when I came in September, I had a plan that I was working towards after doing lots of research, floor plans, 3D models. I was an academic for a while, so I like research and I like to plan and make a plan of action. I'm not one to come in and be like, wouldn't this be neat? And then figure it out, let you figure it out. Now, I thought it was neat. I like to come up with an idea and then I like to work that problem. And so, it has a very interesting floor plan. There's one, the atrium is this big octagonal room, with high ceilings and a dome. And, it's a very interesting space. But when it comes to utilizing that space well and accentuating the architecture and really letting the architecture be its own piece of art, you have to know when is enough, when is too much. How do you put the right amount of things in here to give people things to do, but also to, when you walk in that door, look up, you're like, wow, I don't see places
still
like
do
this.
that.
Yeah,
Anytime
when we came up the stairs the other day when you were there, you had the best reactions. You were like, wow.
Yeah.
Yes.
In addition to the fact that y'all just truly changed the layout of it.
Yeah.
Even before y'all changed it, whenever I walk in, it's just an automatic thing to look up at that place. And then, like I said, when you all changed in January, when you shut down and switched everything around, moved some stuff from upstairs to downstairs, walking in there now, it's totally different. For those who haven't been since you've changed it, I highly recommend you stop by the Carnegie and check it out. So you're what you see. That's the space. There's so much you can do with it, upstairs and downstairs. I always had this thought, this idea. I'm the type that can have the ideas, but it's like, I don't know how to implement it. Let me find people who know how to do it. I had this idea. It's downstairs. It's just a nice little theater. Yeah. Improv. I see improv when I'm down there.
We have an improv show coming up.
Improv show coming at the Carnegie. Yeah. It's just that type of space, and a lot of people don't know. We've got the NED, we've got the Civic Center, but this space to me seems like, okay, I'm a startup artist. I want to get my foot in the door. This place is that place to start. That's what I've always seen. Is that something that you see for the future of this building?
Yeah, and it's great to think about like what other places and facilities in the city and what they do really, really well. And so I love efficiency. And I love building bridges and relationships with other people that are doing wonderful things. And it's just like, the NED is the place where you're going to see a big production theater play, right? Yes. And then the Civic Center, you could see a huge big concert down there too. And so like, I don't have any interest in doing that. So we have a little black box theater that seats, comfortably, 50 to 70 folks. Yeah. You don't even have to mic it. It could just be acoustic. And so in my mind, that's like, well, some things are scaled best for that kind of room, like it's something that maybe, I would much rather be a room packed with 50 people and it be 50 people than to be at the NED and 50 people in the room, and the NED feels like nothing. It kills the energy of the room.
Or you can have 50 people over multiple days versus 200 people 2 days. Yeah. So I totally get that.
So it gives us options, especially working hand in hand with the NED and working with the Civic Center. And we're all part of the city, we're all under the city umbrella. And so we're all on the same team. And so it's great to think about, there's things that I could specialize in. So for me, like what I think I probably bring to the table is curating and visual art and dealing with like music and things like that. So the upstairs of the Carnegie is really devoted towards, visual exhibitions, whereas the NED definitely has visual, they have visual art on display regularly, but their primary, I see at least, is like the theater's their primary, and then they have visual art represented as well. Whereas like for us, maybe the visual side is our primary and the theater is maybe a secondary for us. And that way we have enough spaces also to fit different needs and fit different communities and things like that. And so in my mind, it's a great option. We have more options for a viewer as well, you know, because maybe you want to see a little improv show. Maybe you want to go see Cinderella. You know, like ideally we're providing as a city government, we're providing, you know, quality of life things for our citizens, you know, working. So most people don't realize that Carnegie is actually under Parks and Recreation.
Right.
And that's a really special place to be for me. I've had a great experience with my coworkers there, with Tony Black, incredible boss, like super supportive. I wish people knew how much work he does on their behalf. A lot of people have no idea how much work Tony does to make Jackson, the quality of life in Jackson, as best as it can be. And so it's pretty cool to be with a team of people that's all of our goals. That's what we're working towards, you know, and don't we all want to live in a city with good quality of life?
Yes, we
and
do.
so we all
want
working towards
something
it.
to do.
Yeah,
that's
of
what they all
course.
say.
Want something
we
good
need something
to do.
And you mentioned the team. I had Jason Compton on. He's the director of the Western Sea Healthcare Sportsplex, and he mentioned how we are the only city that is like, we run the actual sportsplex. It is a city venue, and for that is the quality of life for those who like the sports and things like that. For the city to be behind that is a big deal. For the city to be the main, you know, the coach for this team in the arts, theater, visual arts, performing arts, the fact that the city runs these, it is a big deal. It's not just some private, you know, entity coming in, renting it out. It's the city doing these things. So when it comes to that, for you, the future, what do you see, what do you hope for in the future of the Carnegie? I know you've done a lot of changes, upstairs and downstairs. What's your vision for the Carnegie?
Yeah. I think in a very general mission, which just seems so basic, but I think it's important to just like set that as the goal. Is like, my goal is that whenever someone thinks about, I'm going to go to the Carnegie today, that they get to experience something that elevates them. Whether that's a small show in the theater in the basement, whether that's in our classroom space that we just built out to like take a painting class or watercolor or a music class, or, you know, upstairs getting to see, right now we have an artist from St. Louis, a photographer named Brian Burks, on display until August the 2nd. And that's work that like, it's really strong, really beautiful, compelling work that's really accessible. It's photographs of guys in their old cars. And it sounds, you know, like that. Just come and see it and experience it, because like my goal is that I want to elevate the people that we have here. I also want to bring in wonderful things from other places, exhibitions, art displays, stories, things like that. So that every time you walk through the door, we hit that same goal. That goal is, I feel like my world is a little bigger and better because I went in the Carnegie today, that I know that that's a place where their goal is to elevate me in some way. And, you know, maybe you're only interested in music history, right? And you're only interested in that thing. Well, we want to provide that for you. Maybe you're only interested in more contemporary types of art forms. Well, is there something that we can show that you feel welcome to, and not in some, like, you know, I get it. I come from a blue collar family, you know. I'm the first person in my immediate family to graduate from college, nevertheless, like, go to graduate school to study art, you know. My cousins are truck drivers, you know, like, I understand when I say, oh, I run an art and history museum, the presupposition is like, elitist, right? Like, I'm going to walk in there and be like, what is this? I want that never to be the case, you know? I want that when you come in, you see something that if you have a PhD, you're like, wow, this is really interesting. If you didn't graduate from high school and you're not interested in any of that, that you could come in and be like, wow, that's also really cool. You know, like, that's really inspiring. That's what I want the Carnegie to be. It should be a community museum, should be made for the community. And I think that that's really important that we try to establish that.
So you mentioned the photographer whose exhibit is there, but there's also the music part of it, the legends. It's still there. we used to have the International Rockabilly Museum, and a lot of those things came over to the Carnegie. A lot of that stuff was already at the Carnegie. The music history here in the city of Jackson, I had no idea a lot of music started here. When I say started here, the origins of a lot of music styles and genres started here in Jackson. This museum, just the music side itself, which is still there, it's valuable for those in the music industry to stop by, come to the Carnegie, and walk in. And once you see the music side, you'll see like I say, you walk in and you just see the building itself. You might not be interested in anything, you just like the building, and you're like, okay, this building is cool. What's in here? Oh, all of this stuff is cool. This is pretty cool to be a part of this. But the music side of the Carnegie, do you still want to be able to have that part in the Carnegie for people to come check out the musical history and also try to be a part of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that because the Carnegie is based in Jackson, Tennessee, and when we're talking about art and history in our region and historical art practices, music is a key, player in that art form. I think for me, as someone who's played music since I was a little kid and who's worked in visual art, and most of my friends are musicians, to me, I don't see the barrier between visual art, performing art, and music. To me, it's all inspiring. And what I think is great about music is that, I could say, oh, let's go to this exhibit and see these paintings. And some people might be like, I don't know about that. I don't know if I want to do that. Then they'll get in their car, turn on Spotify, and listen to music on their way somewhere else. I think that, again, in my mind, it's all art to me. It's all something that makes us feel connected to each other. And I think that's a really beautiful thing. And so if the Carnegie was uprooted and flown over to another town, then maybe there wouldn't be a music exhibit there. There wouldn't be a music history exhibit there. We're really fortunate that, the city, we've partnered with a nonprofit that is the Legends of Tennessee Music Museum, and that nonprofit has held together a lot of music history artifacts that if they wouldn't have done that, I don't know that that they would either exist or just be in a way that people would have access to understand them. And so it's nice that we can partner with a nonprofit that's what they do well, and that's what they care about, and it's important for us and our cultural identity. And if anything, like, how can we keep expanding that and discover other artists? There's an artist named Ruby Falls, and she was an early African American country singer. And a lot of people don't know a whole lot about Ruby Falls.
The only Ruby Falls I know is the waterfall.
And that's how she got her name.
Okay.
It's my understanding. I'm still learning a lot about this artist. And she passed away really young. But she had a big hit, and it's I've been speaking with a historian based out of Scotland that's writing a book and doing work about Ruby Falls. And so we've been in contact via email. And she's told me that until Beyonce's big country hit, that Ruby Falls was, had basically the biggest country success as an African American female artist, and she's from here. And so there's other stories about these significant players that, time is not a friendly thing, because time forgets all things unless we hold on to them, and so as a museum, that's something that we're tasked to do, is to try to hold these stories as best we can and partner with people that are the authorities on them. I'm never going to be an authority on Ruby Falls or on Carl Perkins. I'm never going to be that authority. That's not my job as the director. My job is to find the people that are and try to find a way that they can tell those stories and share those with everyone else. And so, we're really fortunate to partner with the Legends organization so that we can provide that music history. And we see people from all around the world come to study and learn about Carl Perkins and learn about these other musicians. One of my favorites, Eddie Arnold, who's an old country musician that was, really fantastic, like beautiful songwriter. It's kind of neat that, we can kind of share that bit of knowledge with people, and you can actually see, like, that's his guitar. That's, that's the thing that, like, it's right there. It's not a picture of it online. It's right there, And I think that reality also reminds us that like these people that did these significant things in the world, they're just like you and me. They're just regular folks that worked hard towards a certain thing, and they were really fortunate that they got to share it with us. And so I hope that encourages other people to share what they're making, share what they're working on too.
Aaron Hardin, you're telling stories in a totally different way now. Here as the director of the Carnegie Museum for Arts and History. Thank you for coming on East Main 101.
Thanks for having me.
Lesson 25. We could go on and on about photography. We can go on and on about the Carnegie. I encourage anyone who's watching to just go visit the Carnegie.
And I'll remind everyone, we started a free local membership program. So if you live in the county, come by, sign up.
Tell them right there in that
free
camera.
Local membership. That was a big goal that I had. Like, so if you're from the area, come sign up for a membership. We want you to come be a part of the space, use the space, like come see us. We want to make this is your museum, so come and be a part of it.
Aaron Hardin, Lesson 25, East Main 101. Again, thank you for coming on. I appreciate you. And as things go on, I'll bring you back on, and we'll talk more in depth on specific things you got going on at the Carnegie. So again, that does it for East Main 101 Lesson 25. But before we go, of course, I have my pop quiz for my guests. So pop quiz is just 3 questions about my guests, just to get to know you a little bit better. Question number 1, back in your Jackson Sundays, we shot so much. Let me rephrase that. We photographed so many things. I used to tell people all the time, I shoot people for a living, but it's photo people for a living. We had a lot of assignments. Of the many assignments that you had, what was your most interesting? If you can remember. Or 1 or 2.
Yeah, the one that sticks out the most is we had a really bad flood here in
2010.
Was that 2010?
Yeah. When I first got here.
Yeah. We had this tremendous flood, and we literally were cut off from like the rest of Tennessee. And so I got a phone call from whoever was doing assignments, and they were like, Blackhawks are coming from Nashville with the governor. Do you want a seat on the Blackhawk to fly over? And what I didn't tell them is that I get really motion sick. Like, I'm not good on, I don't even like to sit in the back seat of a car. Like, I get super motion sick, and I don't like to fly. I fly, but if I don't have to, I won't. And of course I was like, well, I mean, when else is this going to happen? So I was like, yeah, I'm in. And so I went right to Walgreens, and I got some Dramamine, and I don't know, I probably ate a few of them, probably more than the recommended dosage, just so I could get on that helicopter. And, when else are you going to be flying over your city in a Black Hawk with the governor with a camera? It was wild experience. That one always sticks out to me. Like, I can't believe I got to do that. It's pretty cool.
And being on a helicopter is totally different from being on a plane.
Totally
different. Like, so with the doors open?
Yeah, the doors are open. Yeah, both of them the whole time. Like, oh boy.
Sitting out there like, okay, am I strapped in?
Yeah.
Is my camera racked on my arm? I did a flyover with JPD one day, and I was up there, and every few seconds I'm wrapping the camera around my arm because the door was wide open. Got some amazing shots. The city is beautiful from above.
Yeah, and it's fascinating to see it that way.
Yeah,
because you just don't.
Different perspective. Yeah. And as a photographer, those are some of the things. You plant your DNA in the city. For me, for that particular flood, I remember, I don't know if it was this particular one, but I drove from one end. No, okay, this one wasn't because we weren't cut off. I drove from North State Line to the South State Line in one day. I remember having to do that. It's just something happening down in Selmer, and then something happening up in Martin. So that was a lot of driving. Yeah. And we did it. So I've got a lot of interesting ones, and none really stick out. The only one I know that sticks out, I was chose to photograph a lot of funerals. I don't know why. I think later on they explained to me that, Kenny, people actually want you to come shoot. Yeah. And I did what I did. I remember one particular one. I needed a perspective because the way they were bringing out the coffin, couldn't really see because you're on the ground level. So it was a big funeral. I think it was a firefighter. Saw a school bus. So I asked the bus driver, I was like, hey, I need a picture of them coming out. Do you mind if I climb on top of your bus? It's like, fine. So I got on that bus, climbed on top of the emergency exit, and I got pictures of it. And somebody took a picture of me up there and sent it to me. So probably wasn't my most interesting, but that was one of those where I learned if you don't ask, the answer is always no.
That's right.
So that particular assignment is the one that sticks in my mind for that particular reason. Of if you never ask, the answer is always no.
Yeah, the answer's going to be the same.
It's going to be the same.
The only opportunity to change the answer is you got to ask.
Got to ask. That's right. And I've learned to ask the questions if I, want to get in some random place to get a picture of something. So question number 2, the Carnegie, of course, has a exhibit related to music. We talk about the legends, and not sure a lot of people know. A lot of people might know that the first Hard Rock was here in Jackson, Tennessee. For a while, the Carnegie was the Hard Rock Museum type deal.
Yeah.
So of that, I know you're a photographer. You mentioned that your wife was in a band. You met her. What's your favorite genre of music?
Oh, man. It always changes so much. I know that's like the typical like musician thing to say. I think if I was always just going to go back to like an era of music, and this sounds a little interesting. I used to play in a honky tonk, like outlaw honky tonk band. I used to be a pedal steel guitar player for a band. And there's something about like outlaw country music, like old school, like Waylon Jennings, and kind of this protest rock and roll but country amalgam thing. There's something in my DNA that it really scratches at, which is a weird thing. But I mean, I listen to lots of different, and I'll just kind of, I like a good record, like a whole album. So I'm not great at Spotify because like I want to listen to like that whole album that person made, but it always changes, I used to I was made fun of when I taught at Union a lot, how little I knew of contemporary music, like new artists, but I guess it's normal. It's part of the like, oh, I'm the older guy in the room, like I guess I'm not going to know who this is,
Okay. But yeah, I mean, it's something about older music, old school music, and what we call old school music. It's still, as they say, it still slaps.
It's still good.
Still good.
Like, why would I need to listen
to new stuff? I hear stuff on the radio now. I'm just like, turn it off.
Yeah.
And I'll go back to my 1980s, 1990s, as some kid put it, the late 1900s. It's crazy. But just to be able to still listen to that, my music taste is eclectic as well. I can listen to anything, and I just enjoy listening to music. That's my getaway. I put some headphones on, noise canceling headphones. I don't want to hear anything else. Just music. It calms me down. When my wife's at work at night and it's just me and the baby, I have music on. We're not watching TV. We're listening to music. I'm dancing around with her. Music is just my getaway, and I enjoy it. So honky tonk was your type of. You said steel pedal guitar.
Yeah, I used to play it. Yeah, I used to be the pedal steel guitar player for a band called Cotton Clifton and the Pickers.
Clifton and the Pickers.
Brandon Clifton, who lived here for a long time, and now I think he's moved to Texas now. But it was just fun, playing music in like honky tonk environments, like dirty old bars and stuff. It's not my reality. Yeah. It was not my norm of like the places that I would normally go, but it's again kind of like being a photographer. Like you have these great memories in these places that you never would have gone and experienced. So I think I just have like a certain nostalgia towards that.
And there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. So question number 3. Your bio mentions that you published a book recently. Can you describe your favorite photo published in that book?
Yeah, so The 13th Spring is the first kind of major publication. I published zines and self-published things, but actually a published book, art book, photo book. And the work is kind of a lot around a season of my life in which my first child was born and how kind of terrifying and joyful that experience was. But I ended up photographing a lot of animals for some reason. And so there's 2 pictures in that book that always stick out to me, and they're almost on different ends of the spectrum of each other. One of them happens really early in the book, and it's a snake trying to get into a house on a doormat. And that one's a very polarizing picture. And it just came about. My neighbor called me and she was like, there's a snake trying to get in my house.
Okay,
Would you
I
kill it?
was just about to ask you, how do you find a snake going into a house?
It's Jackson stuff, That's why you got to have friends and community because, she called me. She was like, my husband's across town. Would you come kill this snake? It's trying to get, literally trying to get in my house.
And the first thing you think is to grab your camera.
I'm going to take pictures of it. I'm not going to kill it. I'm going to take pictures of it. I literally photographed it until her husband showed up.
Oh, my gosh.
And it was on a welcome mat. So, there's a snake on a welcome mat trying to get in the house. It's like, you just can't make this up, know? And then on the other end of the spectrum, there's a picture I made of a white peacock on this big open road.
I remember seeing that one.
And, it was very symbolic of this kind of pure, beautiful creature that, kind of represented my daughter in this phase of my life. And so the peacock shows up in that book a couple of times as, representative of Josephine, my oldest daughter. And so I think both those animals, were symbols of different terrors and joys, which I think really sums up that book and that time of my life. And then it's funny enough, after that, whenever I would get assignments with the New York Times, it seems like I would always get weird animal assignments because I would photograph these strange animals, which I'm about. I love photographing weird animals. I don't know why. It's just, it's interesting. But those are the ones.
A random peacock in Jackson in an open road. That's just, I wouldn't imagine seeing a peacock randomly. Is that another one where somebody called you or you rolled up on it?
That I shouldn't tell a magician shouldn't tell his secrets, but in that one, it was actually down at the safari park. Okay. I photographed it outside of the safari park. I was driving to the safari park. I was working for them to photograph something for one of their campaigns or something, and I was just driving down one of the side roads to get, as I would do in that season of my life a lot, to look for pictures. And there was just this white peacock down this road. And it lived at the safari park, but I think peacocks just kind of go wherever they're going to go. They kind of roam.
Free range peacocks.
And so, I never tell people that we were beside a place that had all these exotic animals because that kind of kills the mystery. One thing I love about photography is you only know what's in the box, and there's a whole lot outside of the box that you just don't know. And sometimes from your imagination standpoint, it's kind of nice to not know everything outside the box.
It like if you had not told me, it'd be like, that's just so random. About a peacock just roaming around here in Jackson, West Tennessee. But the snake story, as a photographer, I get it. Oh, Kenny, there's some. I'm grabbing my camera.
Yeah,
and
we got to photograph. When else is this going to happen?
And I'm going to do that first, and then I'll call animal control. Come get it. I'm not going to touch it.
Yeah, I'm not going to mess with it. I don't deal with snakes.
So, Aaron Hardin, thank you again for coming on East Main 101 Lesson 25. Again, we're going to, as more things happen at the Carnegie, we're going to try to get you on. We're going to talk about some more things. Of course, when things happen, you get it to me. We get the press release out. When another exhibit happens, you just let me know. We're going to make sure we get the word out. That does it for Lesson 25 of East Main 101. But before we go, there is homework. The homework is to visit the Carnegie. It's located at 305 East College Street here in downtown Jackson, Tennessee. Check it out. And like Aaron mentioned, there's a free program where you can just come in, visit the Carnegie, learn more about what's going on, and come back because there's new stuff coming with Aaron's leadership at the Carnegie. And that does it for East Main 101 Lesson 25. Don't forget to follow us on all of our government social media accounts and opt into our text alerts by visiting connect.jacksontn.gov. Also, be sure to visit eastmain101.jacksontn.gov to subscribe to our YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcast channels to listen to each lesson in its entirety. Until next lesson, class dismissed.